You know, a Fox 5 exclusive, Brendan Banfield on trial, deadly desire. Banfield, former IRS criminal investigator on trial in Fairfax County, facing aggravated murder charges for the deaths of his wife Christine and another man, Joseph. Joining us now to talk more about this trial and everything that is going on with it, Fox 5's very own Bob Barnard. Bob, just a captivating trial. This is something that the community has been looking forward to find out what's going on. What's the latest?
Well, there were a lot of delays getting to this point, Chad. I mean, the murders were almost 3 years ago. In that video, you just saw Brendan Banfield at the time of his arrest wearing shorts and a T-shirt. Today, he was in court here. Slacks, a tie, at times wearing glasses. And today was basically day one of the trial. And you see the woman there next to him in the photo there. That's Juliana Margulies. She has already pled guilty in this case to involuntary manslaughter and is expected to testify for the prosecution at trial. So today was day one, and today was jury selection. And normally, I mean, first of all, this is going to be a video live recorded and broadcast and streamed trial, which we don't have in this area, not here in Virginia, D.C., or Maryland. It's very rare. So we as journalists rarely cover jury selection. We might go to opening arguments and key parts of the trial. But today, because this, starting tomorrow, will be broadcast for everybody to see, including here on our Fox Local app, today we went to jury selection. It was very interesting because Brendan Banfield sat there with his lawyer, John Carroll. There were only a handful of reporters and a few spectators, not a big crowd in the courtroom today. We were on the right side of the courtroom. On the left side were all the prospective jurors, 80 of them. What they ended up getting were 16. 12 will be the actual jurors and 4 alternates, because this is scheduled to be a 4-week-long trial. So if along the way, for whatever reason, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 have to be dismissed, they have alternates who will be taking in all of the testimony, listening to all the evidence during the course of this trial. But getting to this point today was interesting because, first of all, they asked people, is this going to be difficult for you to give up 4 weeks of your life? And oh my gosh, like half the place raised their hands. Half of the 80 prospective jurors, all Fairfax County residents, half of them raised their hands. And this judge is tough. This is Penny Ascarati. She oversaw the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. She's the chief judge at Fairfax County Circuit Court here, and she was having none of it. She showed no mercy. People were telling about trips and daycare and elder care and job responsibilities. She's like, nope, 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 nope. And you could hear everybody going, oh my gosh, she's a tough cookie. Then they asked, anybody aware of this trial? And not so many hands went up, but 6 people who had opinions based on what they knew about this were dismissed. Some of them saying, I just read about this today. Wow. I saw it on the news this morning. I heard it on the radio coming to the courthouse. Didn't know that this was the trial I might have been seated for. So basically, Chad, it was interesting listening to the prosecution and the defense attorney try to weed through the people that they needed to kind of dismiss from the jury to settle on the final 16, asking them things like, how do you feel about marriage infidelity? Do you have a bias toward police? At some point in this trial, they're going to be talking about bondage and domination. I mean, parts of this case, and we can get into that in a little bit if you'd like, involve those kind of role-playing sex fantasy issues. And the prosecution and the defense were asking, are anybody here going to have a tough time dealing with that kind of evidence? And no hands went up at that. So it was interesting. It basically took a good chunk of the day. They were done at around 1:30. Then they dismissed court till tomorrow. Tomorrow they'll be back for opening arguments with the 16 jurors there. One of the group, Chad, one of the group of the other, up to 80, some had been dismissed earlier in the day, but of those that were left, we ended up talking with one of them afterward, a gentleman named Brian from Fairfax County, who he seemed to be pretty sharp in some of the Q&A with the judge and the prosecutor and the defense attorney during the process of whittling down the jury pool. And so afterward, I went up to him and I said, "Hey, can we talk to him?" And he said, "I actually love Lion and I watch Fox 5. So here's our interview with Brian after he was dismissed today.
Yeah, I've been called down for duty, but never actually been selected to be on a jury. And when I heard it was going to be 4 weeks, it's like, that might be a challenge. Could be a challenge, but definitely would have to make it happen. So
you were willing and ready to serve?
Willing and ready to serve, absolutely.
A lot of people knew about this case. What do you make of this case? Would it have been a problem for you to serve?
It's definitely one I'm aware of because I do watch Fox 5. So I'm aware of it. I definitely have heard about it. So I did mention that, obviously, and they did have some follow-up questions about that. But ultimately, facts are facts. I should be able to evaluate the facts and come to the conclusion they want me to come to. So,
and so you told the judge that you would be able to, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
What sticks out in your mind about this case?
It's a tough one. I mean, what sticks out specifically is that my wife used to work with Department of Family Services, and I think there's an element of that to this one as well. So that's kind of what sticks out. Sometimes when we're watching the news, it's we'll hear a case and go, well, this is kind of how that would apply in this particular with what she did. So.
Sure. Yeah. Because there was a 4-year-old girl in the basement. Apparently, the word is he put the girl in the basement because he knew it was going to happen up there.
Right. Yeah, and it's definitely. It'd be difficult not to talk to my wife about it. It's just kind of the line of work she worked in.
So you have sympathy for the jurors who have been selected
Absolutely.
For 4 weeks.
No question. And that's a really long commitment to do your civic duty, but definitely, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a lot of really difficult information they're going to probably have to process over the next month.
And avoid news media, right? I mean, because a lot of people knew about this case.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's on the news. I mean, you guys are here today, so clearly it's important, and I definitely remember hearing about it last February.
And as you leave, your overall thoughts?
My overall thoughts is, I hope the case goes well. I hope they're able to come to a good verdict. There's not a mistrial, and I think it sounds like everybody is ready to go.
And that was Brian Griebel, a loyal Fox 5 fan, one of the original pool of 80 potential jurors for the Banfield murder trial, who, along with many others, was dismissed this afternoon by Judge Azcarate when they finally selected their 12 jurors for alternates here in Fairfax County this afternoon, Chad.
When you take a look at those 16, what stood out to you in relation to male, female, gender, potentially race, religion? What stood out to you of the 16 that were selected?
Like this area, Chad, a great mix. Nobody's super young, I would say 30s to 60s, fairly evenly split, men, women. There were a couple who initially said they have a tough time with the language, but when the judge said, "Have you understood everything we've been talking about up until this point?" they said yes. So it's a really good cross section, and there is going to be a camera in the courtroom, but not at all throughout this trial, which again will be streaming and which will potentially last 4 weeks. The camera will never show the jurors, so we saw the jurors with our own eyes, but there's no chance that the public is going to know who these jurors are until at the end of the trial, if they choose to come forward, as Brian did very graciously for us today. I will tell you, at the start of today's hearing, before the jurors were in the room, the potential jurors, Chad, the judge laid out not the case, but the 7 separate charges against Brian Banfield, and he pled not guilty to each of them. There are 4 murder charges, like 2 for the murders, 2 because there's a Virginia statute that says if you commit 2 murders within a 3-year period, it's an extra charge. So because Brian Banfield allegedly murdered his wife, Christine, and shot this Joseph Ryan at the same time, he is facing 4 murder charges, not just 2. Also, a 5th charge for committing a felony in the possession of a firearm, and also 2 child endangerment neglect charges, because at the time of the murders, the couple's 4-year-old daughter was in the basement. And just to kind of bring people up to speed, this is a sensational case that happened back February 24th, 2023. So again, almost 3 years ago. And this was at the couple's home in Herndon, just east, basically, of Dulles Airport, Chad. And on that morning, prosecutors allege that Brian Banfield and his mistress, the couple's au pair, this Juliana Magalhaes, lured this gentleman, Joseph Ryan, who was 39 from Springfield, Virginia, lured him to the house, having allegedly, according to prosecutors, reached out to him, found him on kind of a fetish website, lured him to the house saying, hey, I'm Christine, even though prosecutors say it was Brendan, pretending to be the wife. Come to the house and we'll do some role playing, this bondage, this dominance, this S&M stuff. And, my husband's out of town, come on over. Because it was Brian Banfield's birthday the day before, and he was supposed to be in New York at the time. So anyway, the allegation is that Brian, with help from the au pair, lured this stranger, Joseph Ryan, to the house, and that both the au pair and Brian Banfield shot and killed Joseph Ryan, and that the allegation is that Brendan stabbed his wife to death. Their claim is that, no, this was a home invasion. This Joseph Ryan was an intruder. We shot and killed him after he stabbed Christine while the little daughter was down in the basement. So it took a while from the initial crime scene, and I was there that morning. I was working on the morning show at the time. I was out there this morning, and even Chief Kevin Davis, the chief of Fairfax County Police, was you could tell there was something strange about this case, because you had two people alive in the house, two people dead in the house, one being the wife and a stranger. There it was. That was that morning. And it took months and months and months of detective work to initially arrest the au pair, charging her with second-degree murder, which she pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter. She's not been sentenced yet because she is expected to testify for the prosecution against that man there, Brian Banfield, and then will be sentenced at that point. She faces up to 10 years. Some people say she's going to get time served and be deported back to her home country of Brazil, but we'll see how that goes. And then it took almost another year before a grand jury indicted Brendan Banfield. So the au pair was arrested first, and then Banfield, and he now alone is standing trial on these. It's a total of 7 counts, but for the murders of his wife, Christine, and this gentleman from Springfield, Virginia, who sadly was lured to the house, according to prosecutors, under this pretense of meeting up with Christine, and in the process got shot and killed.
Now, Bob, obviously this trial is going to lay out, for the individuals that are watching this right now, very soon this will likely be a conversation that's being had throughout the DMV. But just looking at the facts of it, this is a story that you've been following all along. The fact that Brendan Banfield now on trial, but the fact that Juliana already pled guilty to this, that's got to be somewhat damning to his own case, one would assume.
Yeah, and I am no lawyer or psychologist, but just kind of in the aura of the courtroom, thinking that here's a guy who knows that this young woman who he clearly was having an affair with, because there were photos at the time. Police executed a search warrant it was I think a year and a half after the original murders. They found a picture of Brendan and Juliana framed on a nightstand in the bedroom. So, he clearly had a relationship with her. She has already pled guilty to her involvement in this and is going to testify against him. And just sitting in the courtroom and knowing all this, you're kind of like, man, that's a gutsy guy. He is willing to roll the dice. I guess the alternative is he's going to potentially spend life in prison, because there's no longer the death penalty here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So the worst he faces is life in prison. But I don't know if he had a bargaining chip, but just to kind of put the potential jurors through this, 4 weeks of your life are dedicated to my defense, when part of the prosecution evidence against me is my former lover who's going to say, here's what I did. It's pretty interesting, pretty gutsy.
And when you look at it, that additional charge, the fact that allegedly that the 4-year-old child was also in the house, Bob, 4-year-old child in the house when allegedly her mother was set up to be killed along with another individual as well. That just adds so many layers to this entire case.
Yeah, and you heard Brian, who we met this afternoon after he was dismissed as a potential juror. He was telling us his wife used to work in child welfare, and so they heard about this case when it first happened. He mentioned February of last year. It was February of 3 years ago. But that's what caught their attention with this case, was that, yeah, there was this crazy, weird au pair involved, which has a lot of people interested. The sex fetish stuff that lured one of the victims into the house, allegedly. But then the fact that the couples, that if what the prosecutors are alleging is true, that this Brendan Banfield set this whole thing up and stabbed his wife to death in their bedroom after placing the daughter in the basement. That has a lot of people just, really upset. And those are two of the additional charges. I mean, the murder is what he could spend the rest of his life in prison for if he's convicted. But the prosecution felt that this child endangerment and child abuse factor, because their daughter was in the house at the time, weighs on a lot of people as well.
Bob, again, it's day one right now. All that we've gotten through is jury selection. But as a world-class reporter that you are, that has been tracking this story, well, you are, Bob. You are. But from that position, if you had a chance to have interviewed Brendan Banfield today, tomorrow, or the next day, what's one question that you would ask him?
Probably, it's the standard question, why? I mean, we all know people who've had marital issues. If you're in love with the au pair, divorce your wife and take up with the au pair. Why kill your spouse, someone you exchanged vows with, had a child with, if what prosecutors are saying is true and he is responsible for her death, stabbed her to death? Why do that? Why not let her live and give your daughter a life and not take away her mother and put her dad in prison potentially for life? Why do that? Why not just end things with her legally and take off with the au pair?
Absolutely. Day two of the trial coming up tomorrow. Bob, final question for you. What are you looking forward to on day two? This is something, I worked in Florida for a number of years, and I'm just going to warn you, my phone is about to die. So if I get disconnected, it's not because I was tired of talking with you, Chad. So I've got like 10% left here on my phone. But I worked in Florida for a number of years where cameras are allowed in the courtroom, and it can be very dramatic when a prosecutor and a defense attorney deliver their opening statements. Here's our case. Here's our case. We're going to get to see that tomorrow, and so I think it'll be interesting and unusual, at least in this area, a courtroom in our backyard, to see that play out, and that starts tomorrow. That starts tomorrow, and every day at 4:15 p.m. we will be having this conversation with Bob Barnhart as he brings us the latest, the Fox 5 exclusive Deadly Desire, Brendan Banfield on trial. Bob, as always, thank you very much, my friend.